how the campaign system works outside of Orange Star is that once you complete the first 2 missions, then the next batch of 3 opens up. But I prefer to complete the 3rd one too before moving on to the next group. So, finally, the main leader of Blue Moon gets to have his battle debut in the campaign. And yes, of course, this mission takes place in his hometown. Of course, you know there has to be a battle taking place here, so... Whoa, that's a very messed up looking map. Broken? Exactly what was she testing anyway? Ah, and now as she hinted there, yep, this is the location of the lab map for Blue Moon, but more on that later. And here it is, Olaf's theme, probably one of the most iconic pieces of music in the Advance Wars series in my opinion. Now this mission is basically pretty standard, with a few twists, namely the fact that the map is incredibly small and it's been messed up beyond all recognition. The other thing about this map is, there actually, since it's so small, there aren't actually many properties here, and I find this tends to be a battle of relatively small incomes, so don't expect to be getting anything bigger than tanks in this battle. Because of that, power meters don't actually charge up very fast here, as well. So it's best to get, you'll be seeing lots of infantry here, it's best to get a few out as soon as possible. They make the most of this mangled mess of terrain. As you can see, recons don't do so well here, but you'll probably want a few early on because of the amount of infantry. Now, probably best to talk about Olaf here. Olaf, like Andy, is another one of this game's average characters. In fact, his only real area of uniqueness is his powers. Basically, Olaf is immune to snow, but weak in rain, although fortunately that really won't happen very much unless you're facing a certain opponent or you've chosen random weather in a multiplayer game. But the snow is important since most of Olaf's abilities tend to revolve around that, and his normal power and superpower both create snow. Essentially what this means is that Olaf is kind of like Andy, except he gears more toward disrupting his opponent than powering himself up. Which is quite interesting since not many characters in this game actually do that. Yeah, unfortunately, if Lash's units get on cities, it's not so good. I find mechs are quite good to deploy in this mission. Mainly because the map is so small, and they're good against the vast majority of things Lash will be sending out. Really, she'll only be using tanks, recons, and artillery, nothing more than that. And generally, you won't be able to afford anything higher than that either. Oh, can I stop her from capturing that? Lash does start closer to more properties. Of course, capturing them is very important in this one, because like I said, the lab map is here. In the Orange Star campaign, finding the lab map was compulsory, but here it's kind of like an optional side quest. Now, I'll leave you to guess which property the map is hidden in, but at this point, it's kind of obvious. Generally, it's hidden somewhere somewhere somewhat hard to get to, but not overly difficult. Like, it'll never be right in the middle of the enemy's base. Although, it kind of is for the yellow corner one. But that'll come later. When I was playing this mission, I was actually, because the map is so small and you both start on opposite corners, and it's quite, not really symmetrical, but it's quite square, I was comparing this mission to a game of chess a few times. And generally in chess, whoever controls the center controls the battle, so that base in the middle is very important. So I like to go for that as soon as I can. Right, now that I've stopped her capture attempt, I'm going to use a certain strategy that, or probably best to get rid of that one first. But I'm going to use the one particular strategy to make sure I remain in control of this until I capture it. Basically, if this infantry gets damaged, I'm going to keep joining until I finally capture the property. Right, good enough for tanks. That's pretty good at this point. Notice Lash is starting to get tanks too. So, yeah, unlike Andy, Olaf has the slight problem that his units are average and will always stay average. So, he doesn't really win in straight fights, but he wins by disrupting the enemy with his powers. They're quite good against, well, you'll mainly see it later, but quite good against air-heavy opponents, mainly because snow gives very harsh movement penalties to air units. In fact, it's the only movement penalty they ever receive, but it literally halves their movement over all terrain, which is pretty punishing. I always like to pick on 1 HP units. It's especially funny to finish them off with infantry. Of course, unfortunately in this game you won't be seeing anything as hilarious as infantry finishing off a mega tank. That's always really hilarious to watch. For those of you who don't know, mega tanks were introduced in Dual Strike. They're basically even more powerful than Neo tanks, but they have some distinct flaws, mainly that they have lower fuel capacity and are slower, and have less ammo. Of course, want to watch out for the tank there. Anyway, enough about talking about games I'm not actually playing at the moment. Ooh, now, I might be able to get an infantry down there and use an APC as a block. Yes, good to send some mechs out of the middle base. Because if a tank comes, you can just send the mech over the mountains and ambush it. Okay, my center domination strategy is going okay. Just want to watch out for that tank. Yeah, I don't want to move in too soon. I'm worried about losing the APC. And I don't want that to happen because that's 2 units off my technique ranking. Yeah, I think I need to reinforce that city as much as I can. I thought that might happen, but I have my mech ready to counter that. Ah, ouch. Here we go. See, mechs are actually really good in this mission, where they have a chance to get first strike on tanks without being outmaneuvered. Recon's doing a fair amount of damage to that APC. Now, better to move down there for reasons that will become apparent. Well, I kind of gave it away, but... yes, it's relatively obvious why I'm moving to capture that kind of out-of-place city there. If you're playing this game for the first time, it's generally best to play the mission once and then just use trial and error to find where the map is, and then once you've found it, then restart and then go for that city as fast as possible. I remember with the Green Earth one, I made a wild guess as to where it was, and I turned out to be correct, but you actually... turns out you have to go really out of your way to get that one, but, that's not till later. Okay, that's pretty good. I like to occasionally check the status screen just to see how many units I've lost compared to the number I've created. If the ratio is getting a little bit bad, I can just start pumping infantry. Which is, as I've explained before, where you create infantry out of all your bases just to get your number of units up. I think you best. Yeah, like I just did there, but of course, you can't really do it in this mission because you only have, generally at most, 3 bases to work with. Now, one thing I could actually mention is that you'll notice that the cities actually have a different backdrop depending on what country you're fighting in. So Blue Moon cities look different to Orange Star cities, for example. The Blue Moon ones actually look quite rural. Of course, there are also unique backdrops for every faction's headquarters. In particular, the Yellow Comet headquarters looks pretty cool. Actually, all of them look pretty awesome. I think my personal favourite is the Green Earth headquarters, because that one just looks pretty epic. And all the countries have their own style of units too. So while they're not actually different ability-wise, the units themselves actually look different depending on what country you're using. In particular, I quite like the look of Blue Moon Infantry. I think they're pretty cool. And you can see I'm kind of running out of things to talk about in this one. Anyway. Right, move some artillery down here. And so you'll notice, yeah, power meters don't charge very quickly in this mission, mainly because you're mostly killing infantry here. Yes, as long as I survive this, I'll be able to join and then capture this probably next turn. Of course, there's something else I can capture this turn. Yeah, you'll see this text immediately after capturing the building with the lab in it. So basically, apart from the Orange Star ones, the lab missions are optional, which you unlock by finding the map, which is hidden in a random, well, one specific property of the map. And as you saw at the beginning of this mission, the opening dialogue usually heavily hints to the fact that there's a map in the particular map you're, no pun intended, you're playing. Okay. Right, in the next part, we'll be finishing off things here. But first, just want to show a bit of a coordinating attack on this enemy tank. Right, weaken it, and then See, coordinating firepower. Works wonders every time.